The story of Joash, also known as Joash, is one of the most intriguing narratives in the Bible. He stands as a vivid example of how a promising start can end tragically when the heart fails to remain steadfast in God. Joash's life is primarily recorded in 2 Kings 11-12 and 2 Chronicles 22-24, and it is filled with profound lessons concerning leadership, spiritual influence, faith, and moral decline. Born amid tragedy, Joash entered the world during a dark chapter in Judah's history. His father, King Ahaziah, was killed by Jehu during a revolt in Israel. In grief and rage, Ahaziah's mother Athaliah ordered the execution of all royal descendants so she could claim the throne, an act of ruthless elimination. Yet Joash, still an infant, was rescued by his aunt, Jehoshaphat, sister of Ahaziah, and wife of the priest Joash. For 6 years she hid him in the temple, shielding him from the murderous wrath of Athaliah. During that time, Joash was raised in secrecy, cared for within the sacred precincts, far removed from public view and the reach of the usurper queen. This early phase in his life demonstrates how God can preserve his purposes even in the midst of chaos. Joash remained the sole legitimate heir of the Davidic lineage, fulfilling God's promise that David's offspring would remain on the throne. The miraculous coronation. When Joash turned 7, the priest Jehoiada saw the time to act. With courage and wisdom, he orchestrated a plot to dethrone Athaliah. He gathered Levites, temple guards, and leaders of the people, and presented Joash publicly as the rightful king. Amid great celebration, Joash was anointed and crowned, and the people shouted, "Long live the king!" Hearing the commotion, Athaliah rushed to the temple, saw the young king beside the royal pillar, and cried treason. But she was promptly seized and executed outside the temple. Joash's coronation was more than a political victory. It marked a spiritual turning point. The temple became the center of national life once again. Worship of the Lord was restored. The people made covenant with God and tore down the temple of Baal. The restoration of worship and the revival of Davidic authority marked a new beginning for Judah. Promising reign. Joash began to reign at just 7 years of age, under the guidance and tutelage of the high priest Jehoiada. As long as Jehoiada lived, Joash acted with justice and fidelity to the Lord. The Bible states, Joash did what was right in the sight of the Lord all the days of Jehoiada the priest. Jehoiada played a pivotal role during this period. He not only guided Joash spiritually but also promoted religious reforms, restoring temple worship and steering the people away from idolatry. Under this godly leadership, the nation experienced spiritual stability. Joash also led the restoration of the temple in Jerusalem. Initially, he asked the priests to use offerings for the repairs, but progress stalled. So, he instituted a system. A chest was placed at the temple entrance for people to deposit their contributions. The mechanism worked, and the renovation was completed successfully. The rebuilding of the temple symbolized a revival of true worship, national identity, and faithfulness to God's covenant. Joash's leadership during this time brought hope to the people and demonstrated his commitment to God's work. Jehoiada's death and the turning point. Joash's course changed dramatically after the death of Joash. The priest lived to a ripe old age and was buried with honors among the kings because of his significance to Judah. However, his death left a void in Joash's spiritual leadership. Without the righteous guide by his side, Joash began to listen to the princes of Judah and fell under corrupt influence. They convinced him to abandon the temple of the Lord and worship at pagan altars and idols. This represented a severe regression, especially considering the previous efforts at spiritual reform. Mercy still came from the Lord. He'd sent prophets to warn Joash and the people. One of those prophets was Zechariah, son of Jehoiada, same priest who had once saved Joash as a child. Filled with the Spirit of God, Zechariah confronted the king and the people with harsh words. "Why have you transgressed the commandments of the Lord? You will not prosper because you have forsaken the Lord. He also has forsaken you." Rather than heeding the warning, Joash committed a cruel act. He ordered Zechariah to be stoned to death in the temple courtyard. One who had been saved by Jehoiada turned and killed his son inside God's house. Zechariah's last recorded words were, "The Lord sees it and will repay you." This tragic moment marked a turning point in Joash's life. The king who once reigned under divine blessing and led the temple's restoration now ordered the death of God's prophet and promoted idolatry. Joash's fall is a consequence of his turning from God and the murder of Zechariah. Judgment came. The army of Syria, commanded by Hazael, invaded Judah and reached Jerusalem. Though the Syrian force was smaller, the Lord allowed them to defeat Joash's army as an act of discipline. In despair, Joash surrendered all the treasures of the temple and the palace to Hazael, hoping to purchase peace. This public humiliation exposed the king's weakness, once promising, now powerless. He did not seek the Lord, but trusted in human resources and material offerings. Not long after, Joash was gravely wounded and assassinated by two of his own officials in an internal conspiracy. The scriptures record that his own servants conspired against him because of the blood of the sons of Jehoiada the priest. His death was tragic and lonely. He was not buried among the kings, as Jehoiada had been. His legacy was tarnished by poor decisions in the final years of his life. Lessons from Joash's life. Joash's story is rich in practical insights for Christian living and leadership. His journey reminds us that spiritual success depends not merely on a good start, but on perseverance and faithfulness until the end. The key lessons include the importance of godly counselors. Joash thrived under Jehoiada's guidance. When that influence fell away, he quickly strayed. This shows the impact of relationships and spiritual mentorship. Everyone, including leaders, needs people who point them back to God. Faith must be personal. While Jehoiada lived, Joash served the Lord, but his devotion seemed borrowed rather than personal. When Jehoiada was gone, Jehoash lacked spiritual foundation. We must remember, faith must rest on a genuine personal relationship with God, not just the influence of others. A good start doesn't guarantee a good ending. Joash began with sincerity and godly reforms, but ended distant from God and mired in sin. Ecclesiastes says, "The end of a matter is better than its beginning." We must remain vigilant and obedient throughout the journey. God sees and avenges injustice. Zechariah's death did not go unnoticed. His words, "The Lord sees it and will repay you," came true. Joash's judgment demonstrates that God is just and hears the cry of the innocent. Abandoning God leads to ruin. When Joash and his people abandoned the Lord, they lost his protection and blessing. Apostasy always brings consequences. Judah's spiritual and material prosperity turned into defeat, foreign invasion, and internal collapse. Conclusion: Joash is a complex figure, a king who had the opportunity to be great but failed when he succumbed to wrong influences and abandoned the God who upheld him from birth. His story stands as a powerful warning. It's not enough to begin well. One must finish faithfully. May Joash's life inspire us to value wise counsel, cultivate personal faith, stand firm even in the absence of men, and walk faithfully with God through every season. May we echo the words of the Apostle Paul, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." If you feel connected to this inspiring story, please share this video with someone who needs to know Joash. Hit the bell icon, subscribe to the channel, and leave your like. See you in the next video with more inspiring stories like this.